Welcome, my name is Tracy Cook and welcome to the podcast series Victim to Victory. This series gives a voice to those who have overcome challenges in all forms that dare greatly to share their real stories. Amazing humans that have seen hope and risen above those adversities to become victorious, that go on to support and inspire others to do the same. Today, we are welcoming and giving a voice to April. Welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tracy, for having me. I'm very honoured to be here.
No problem. So I really want to dig deep. We're having a chat just before the show and I really like your personality that comes through not only on your social media but in the story that you actually shared with me.
Thank you.
And I was very moved when I spoke to you and read your story.
Yep.
And thank you for being very brave, for stepping forward.
No worries.
Let us get to know April. Who is April? And let us know your background, your beginnings, and take us on your journey with us.
It's a big story.
It is.
I'll try to summarize it. So obviously, with my accent, I'm from the States. So I was born and raised in Kentucky by a stepdad. My biological dad wasn't a part of my life, so I was raised by a stepdad. At one stage to what I thought was a Prince Charming in the beginning. Very ticked all the boxes, so to speak, and then as things progressed and went on, I found...
So what were the boxes? What were the boxes that he ticked when you first met?
When we first met, it was the Hollywood image of the butterflies and, you know, the compliments and the just very Prince Charming, the tall and successful. He had a job. He didn't, live in his parents' basement and
wore shoes.
He wore shoes, and he didn't aspire to be a musician in a failing band that was never going to go anywhere. It seemed like it ticked all the boxes for what matched for me as far as having a successful life. At that stage, I didn't know where it would take me, but I knew I wanted to do something successful with my life and my career. So it seemed to tick all of those boxes. Personality, good personality, like to joke around. I'm quite a laid back, like to have a good time and not be serious all the time type of personality.
So he treated you like a princess.
In the beginning,
he was your Prince Charming.
Yes,
he ticked all the boxes.
Ticked all the boxes. Slowly those boxes became unticked, and when they slowly untick, you don't realize they're unticking. It's only when you start to really look back that you go, oh, this isn't actually the same person anymore. And you're not sure if it's something you've done or if maybe it's just a phase. Maybe it's they're going through something personal or something at work and they're just not opening up. And then again, a few years down the line, you look back and the person you're now married to isn't even a resemblance of the person that you met in the beginning.
Wow.
So you become very much of maybe it's me. And when there's a lot of negative kind of emotional abuse that you don't realize has been happening and a lot of isolating you from your friends and your family, that you don't realize it's happening until you look back in hindsight and you go, oh, actually.
So you were kind of being groomed.
Yes.
To not seeing your friends and your social circle.
Yes.
Financial.
Completely financial. Complete financial control. Yes.
So he was almost grooming you to...
Absolutely.
Right.
And even the financial control, it was like when we bought a house together, it was going to be just in his name because, I don't remember the reasoning that he gave me and the money... like you pay a certain amount of money for rent and things like that. Like I didn't even realize then, being in my mid-20s, that this isn't normal.
You're being conditioned.
Yes,
right.
Being very controlled, very conditioned with the finances side of things. And even in the beginning, very complimentary on my appearance and things like that. And then that slowly started to fade. And I remember a specific day where he said, "Oh, you've got beautiful legs from here down." So it was just those small things that by the end of our relationship and by the end of our marriage that I felt like no one else would love me, no one else would want me. So all the negative things, they stick, and the emotional scars no one can see, but they last forever.
Yeah.
I'm 10 years on past this, and I can still have times where my husband and the father of my children, who is an amazing guy, who I don't tell enough how amazing he is, he might just sigh, and I freeze and I go, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "Just breathing, nothing," and he understands, he knows what I've been through, and he's very patient with it, but it's a trauma. It is a trauma. If I get a text from him and I say, "I'm running late, etc., I'll be there soon," and he just says, "Okay," I read it as that I'm going to be in trouble, that there's going to be an issue when I get home about that.
So how long were you in a relationship with your ex-husband?
I think it was about 5 years total.
5 years.
Yeah.
So you were made to feel unworthy.
Oh, completely by the end. And then my weight, I started putting on weight because that was, why.
You were self-sabotaging.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Food, alcohol, we went out quite a bit, so we ate out a lot and we went out. And then he came home really angry one night, and I still don't know what he was so angry about, and that was the first and only time that he was ever physically abusive with me. And he took me by the arm, and I was like, I don't know what's happening really, and I still, looking back, don't really know what the issue was. And he took me by the wrist and he kind of threw me into the kitchen, and I said, "This is not happening. Like, I'm not doing this tonight." And he put his arms across the door frame, and he said, it's like, "Well, let's see you get past me." Well, he's much taller than me, so I just kind of went under the arm and went around. And I don't remember much else that really happened, but I remember my head getting slammed into a wall and then I kind of woke up with him crying over me, apologizing. And I still have like a big knot on the back of the head that's a physical scar of a physical event that. Yeah. And I used to always say, if a guy ever laid a hand on me, he better be willing to run. And then when they do, you actually don't know what to do, because you feel like you've lost all power. And if you do leave, or if you say, "That's it, I'm out," what else are they going to do? What's the next step? So once that physical has happened, the emotional you can try to justify in your head as much as you want to.
And we do that.
We do.
We try to justify the emotional abuse because we can't see anything physical. We don't necessarily have to have outside scars. Our scars are on the inside.
Absolutely.
And when I think you are being emotionally abused, and I hear this from a lot of people that have been emotionally abused, there seems to be a common denominator, and it is you try to justify it.
Yes.
Well, I should have known he didn't like pork chops on a Tuesday.
This was my fault. I shouldn't have, stayed out with my friends as late. I shouldn't have done this. It's my fault. You start to self-blame and try to find answers. I think as women and men, I think just as humans, we try to find an answer for everything in life. And so I think we try to look at that as it's our fault. And when you have someone blaming you for everything that goes wrong, and I remember having the flu once and being home just sick with 40-degree temperatures, and he would come home, why? And not just I've put it into even my professional life. If someone seems like possibly not the type of person that maybe align with my values, I don't work with that. And
that's a great postured trait to have. Posture. And I teach this to my teenager. You're better off having 5 trusted friends that you can rely on at any time than 3,000 Facebook friends.
Exactly.
It's a very different scenario, but it is. I think it's very important to be able to be postured and connect with like-minded people. So you've realised your own self-worth. You've probably, it sounds like to me, you've been in that relationship and you've known what you don't like and what isn't going to move you or propel you into future relationships where you can go on to be a better person. So that's fantastic. That's a fantastic journey. And talk us through the recovery and the transition. Talk us through the doubts that you had along your journey that what made you overcome those doubts when you were transitioning?
Transitioning period is quite hard. I think a lot of women that have been through that situation find always looking over your shoulder to see, afraid that their person will be there. And for me, I had the advantage, so to speak, of moving countries once I met my once we went from friends to more than friends. I had the advantage. I'm 11,000 miles away from the person who caused me that harm, so I don't fear that he's going to be knocking on my door causing me any harm. So I am quite grateful and lucky in that scenario. And I know a lot of women who go through domestic aren't that lucky.
What advice would you give them for looking over your shoulder? What advice would you give, do you think? Especially coming from a nursing and healthcare position as well. It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I would say one of the biggest things that helped me overcome a lot of my self-doubts and things of that nature when our first was born. I mentioned my daughter was born very prematurely, and when she was born, my dad was back in the States dying of cancer. So I hit that 6-week postpartum brick wall, and my emotions were just there, and so much that I had suppressed, like of the abuse and of the transition and the everything I had just suppressed, because that's how I very immaturely dealt with things at the time, of just suppress it, pretend it never happened, and just move on with life, because that's what we do when we're women, right?
We do. We put our big girl pants on.
We just put them on and deal with it, and we just move on. But that's not always the healthiest way to deal with life. When there's things that go on, we sometimes need
great point
that additional help. And I have absolutely zero shame in saying that when I hit that breaking point, I sought a therapist and I saw someone, and
no shame in that at all.
Absolutely. Because it was beyond my this gets to a point sometimes where it's beyond your friends being able to guide you. You need a trained professional sometimes to just help you understand, because I had a lot of blame and for my daughter being born prematurely, even though there was nothing that I did. And that's very common with parents of prems, that we find something that, I ate rare steaks, so this is probably, it's all these self-blames, and that has nothing to do with my past. It's just something, part of being a prem mom. And so I just hit that breaking point, and when I saw my counselor and we worked through a lot of that, we brought up a lot about my past and things like that, and looked at your self-worth and your self-value. And I remember one of the things that I was saying to her, I blame myself for this and I blame myself for that, and she said to me, and these are powerful words, that this is almost 6 years on, and whenever I'm talking to someone who's in a situation of self-blame with relationship issues or with premature birth or whatever the issue is, if the tables were turned and you were telling, and I was telling you what you've just said to me, would you turn around and say, you know what, Tracy, you're right, it is all your fault? And I said, oh, no. And she was like, then you need to be...
That is very powerful.
Yes. She said, you need to be the type of friend to other people that you need to be the type of friend to yourself that you are to other people. And that really put it in perspective. She was like, would you, if someone said, it's my fault that my daughter was born prematurely, would you say, you're right? You shouldn't have had all that, rare steak or that ice cream, that self-serve ice cream really did it.
That is so true. That's really enlightening.
It is.
That is really true.
And I thought, wow, that is so powerful, and that has stuck with me.
I think that's going to stick with me
for
now
6 years.
That's really powerful.
It's a really powerful message that she gave me, and I walked away with that session. I walked away feeling almost like I had a weight lifted. Like I was allowed to let myself not blame me anymore.
Like a breakthrough.
And I was allowed to be human. And I tell my friends going through life, you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to be mad. You're allowed to be sad. Whatever it is, you're allowed to be human. And that was really a big lesson that I learned as well, because I have my dad dying, my daughter in the NICU here, and I felt very torn, and I was trying to hold it all together and be strong.
And especially after coming out of such a traumatic
situation. Yes.
It's all happening.
Yes. So I was trying to be that strong person. And and my therapist, she was like, you're allowed to so you're allowed to cry.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be human. You're allowed to be upset about anything in your life that's happened, you know. It's just how we deal with it from there once you have those emotions. If you stay down, it's a matter of getting back up.
Yeah.
And those
And it's how we get back up, isn't it?
Exactly. Yep. And it's, you know, it can either be something that constantly pulls us down, or it can be something that empowers us to go, you know what, I'm worthy of love. I'm going to go on and live the best life that I can. I'm not going to constantly be the victim. And so when I saw your original post, I was like, well, I'm not a victim. Yeah. I'm not gonna apply for this. And then I was like, well, actually, I've been through quite a lot, you know. The story I have, I think, is kind of empowering, and it's not about. We all go through life, and we all go through drama, and we all go through trauma, and it's how we deal with it, and it's what we use it for that I think that's where our message and that's where our power is, and I think that's how we win. And I think you've said this in a lot of your podcasts and your other videos that I've seen as well so far, is that's how we really move forward. And I think that's also how we heal, is having that power and going, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it is that we aspire to do. And
it's funny you touched on the point where you said you were scrolling past when I was asking for people who wanted to apply for this series, Victim to Victory, because you're not the first person to say that.
Yeah.
The amount of people, a handful of people, have turned around and said, oh, Tracy, I scrolled past and I thought, I'm not a victim.
No.
And I had to re-scroll and think, you know what? Actually, I have been.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah.
And I was very enlightened by that and very humbled by that. The people actually took notice, revisited, and reevaluated their life and their journey to go, you know what, I need to tell my story and I need to air my voice and to help others. Yeah. Just like your brave self.
Yeah.
And I was very humbled in the way that people approached the responses and openly shared their stories with me. And I'm really glad that, and it sounds funny, that I stopped the scroll.
Yes.
Because by doing that, it's changing lives.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
And your story stood out so much. It spoke. I found an instant connection to different words that you were saying. Yeah. And I did read it 3 or 4 times. Yeah. And I thought, wow, this there's a bit more to this. I was reading between the lines. I thought, I have to get this amazing woman on and let her be part of this series, because I want you now to tell me, what are you doing now with this superwoman empowerment that you've got going on, which is amazing. Yes. And let's touch on what you've recently done in Australia as well.
Yes, so the empowerment that I have is, number one, I am raising 2 humans to be the best versions of themselves as adults. So we have a little girl that we're raising and a little boy. And we're raising someone's future husband and wife, or if they choose to have...
Oh, you just made me tear up then.
If they choose to have a same-sex partner, then that's exactly what we support as well.
Very nice.
So we are looking at the bigger picture and making sure that we're raising the best versions of them as we can, and trying to be very open in our home. And that you know, what I said is, you know, you're allowed to be human. Is we do that with our kids. We don't hide our emotions with our kids. If we're upset, or you know, if I miss my dad who passed away not long after my daughter was home from the NICU.
Condolences, darling.
Thank you. You know, she'll be like, oh, are you sad today? I'm like, yeah, mommy just misses grandpa, you know. And she's like, oh, here, I'll give you a cuddle. It's okay to be sad. So she's mirroring a lot of the things that we say back. The youngest is 2. He's still being a tornado, so he's We'll get there with him. But I've gone on and I've started my business, and I've helped so 12 weeks in the NICU, very isolating, living in, like I said earlier, in limbo. And once we got home, I wanted to be able to reach out, because unless you've been there, you don't know what it's like. So I joined the Tiny Sparks board and volunteer as well, and did some workshops with parents. And I still am quite active in the NICU community. There's a few Facebook groups just to try to make people feel less isolated in that scenario. Very similar to domestic abuse, you feel quite isolated. The same with the NICU. The most recent thing I did, which I know you wanted to talk about today, is I took out a drive, because my business focuses on general practices. There was a drive for expired medical consumables to be used on animals that were affected by the bushfires. So I put up a video on my Facebook page, thinking I would get a small box of gathering. The video was viewed over 6,000 times, and every day I would come home to boxes at my door or boxes at my office, handmade Joey pouches. And
these are the Australian bushfires that happened this year.
Yes.
It's massive.
This is the current ones, both local and over east.
Lives lost, koalas, kangaroos,
you name it.
Everything, like millions of.
It's devastating.
It is. It's devastation.
It is, and on humans you can't use like some of the expired things, but in animals they're a little bit more lenient, because it's volunteers that are caring for these animals, and it's not medications, it's gauze, and it's bandages, it's topical creams. And I even actually had some clinics that actually bought brand new things to send as well. So what I originally thought would be this very small, I heard about this rescue collective, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. I feel like there's something more than just giving money, that here's something. And my clinic, or my business, its target audience is clinics. So, and my clients are always saying, what do I do with all these expired things? Because for accreditation and just general day-to-day, you have to get rid of expired consumables. And they're always asking me, what do I do with it? And I'm like, you can donate it to your veterinarian's office or find other organizations. And I thought, this is perfect. I can actually say, guys, bring it to me. I'll be a drop-off hub, and I'll get it to where it needs to go. Not expecting the
overwhelming response.
Which was
good old
so
Aussie
amazing.
Spirit.
Good old Aussie spirit. Had more companies and clinics and individuals that I could actually probably name. I would be afraid to leave someone out. But homemade Joey pouches in different sizes. These woven nests for the birds and things like that. Nice. Our garage was overflowing, so we finally have gotten that dropped off to the hub, which will see that gets to where it goes
on to help all the injured and rescued Australian wildlife from the Australian bushfires.
Yes.
You are amazing.
See, I don't see it that way. I see
amazing.
This as just being human.
Well, that's right. It is, isn't it? It's just being human. But we need more people being human.
Yes.
We need a lot more of us.
We do.
And I just recapping your journey. I mean, from one country in the States to Australia, domestic violence, premature baby, dad dying from cancer, NICU, and going on to still, volunteer and support and raise funds and things like that, and still support your community, and raising two little amazing humans that are being raised obviously by very forward-thinking parents, is something to definitely feel victorious about.
Yes, it is, I guess, if you put it all in that, when you put it in that perspective, I guess it is.
When you think about it like
that, yes. But yes, I just, I feel like it's my husband and I's values and goals in life, and our thoughts on, someone once said to me, oh, what are you going to do if your son, my son mimics everything my daughter does? If she has her fingernails painted, he wants his. And someone, I don't remember who it was, passing is like, oh, what if he grows up gay? It's like, well, then we'll welcome his boyfriend
That's right.
it will be just as, there will be no coming out conversations in our house. It will be, you're accepted how you are in our house.
I love that.
And
I think, absolutely love that.
And I think more families need to embrace that, which I know we're not the standard on that, but and the same for our daughter. If she were to say, it's not a.
It's about seeing the person as they are.
Yep.
Appreciating people for people. That everyone's got feelings, and everyone should be supported no matter what their journey is.
Yep.
And Australia is becoming more diverse. And I think we do still have that good old Aussie mateship and spirit, which does keep this country alive, very much so. And we're getting rid of a lot of old stigmatisms now and welcoming and being more diverse, which I absolutely embrace. And I think that is the future of this country. And I get very outspoken on that, but that might be another
another webcast.
That might be another one completely. And I would, what message would you like to say on closing today?
I guess on closing, I'd like to say to anyone that is watching, listening, however you're doing this, put yourself first sometimes. There's nothing wrong with loving people from a distance. If there's nothing wrong with putting yourself and your life and your happiness first. There's nothing wrong with being a female working. There's nothing wrong with raising children and working, but there's nothing wrong with loving yourself and accepting yourself and seeing that one person's opinion on you doesn't define you. We define who we are. We don't allow everyone else to define who we are. So I think find the power to find your voice and use that to make the world better than it is, in however way that is.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much
today. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. I can see a part 2 coming from this. I definitely can. So thank you very much, April, for being brave to share your story.
Thanks,
You're
Tracy.
very much appreciated. And you can find our podcast on YouTube and the Facebook group Victim to Victory podcast series. If you got value from today, please subscribe, like and comment. And I'd like to leave you with a message. Step into your power and let your voice roar. Thank you, April.
Thank you, Tracy.